the other way around. Just good. You got to take it either regular mail, or somebody asked if we have to can turn in the plagiarism statement through email, but they want a physical copy. You can mail it to the main English office, though, if you don't want to drop by. I try to avoid the place.
Just a heads up for anybody who still has yet to buy it, the bookstore on campus is out, and they said they won't have it in for like another 1.5 to 2 weeks.
Okay, thanks.
Textbook Corner's out too, but you can pre-order them and they'll call you whenever they get them in.
Thank you, guys. Y'all know more about that stuff than me because I don't have to buy a book every quarter. All right, so we need to see what's up for today. Now, we are still a day behind, so this is the lecture and discussion for, week 1, period 2. Let's go over the thesis stuff. Shoot. I don't know how we're calling people. I guess alphabetically again. All right, so just a heads up for down the road when we're writing after we get, well, I guess even this one needs a thesis and topic sentence. Topic sentences, that's separate. So we have this article about thesis statements. Now, his thesis is simply a thesis is a simple declarative sentence that states the opinion you are trying to prove in your paper. So let's say you're writing a 2-page analysis, then that needs a thesis. If you're writing a research paper, that needs a thesis. If you go into graduate school and write a 50-page well, they call that one a thesis, and guess what? A thesis needs a thesis. And if someday you wind up in a doctoral program, you will also need a thesis there. I gotta read those notes that are coming in. Here we go. Okay, good. Y'all are helping each other. So when it comes time to grade, let's go back up to the criteria. The poetry paper, the fiction paper, and the research paper, the first thing I will grade is your thesis. Now, where do I look for your thesis? Somebody help me out.
In the introduction paragraph.
Right. Normally, either the very first sentence of the introduction or the very last sentence. Now, you'll see the second thing I grade is the topic sentence. Guess what? A topic sentence is exactly the same as a thesis statement, only it governs a paragraph instead of a whole paper. With that in mind, let's get a little practice in on talking about theses. And we've got these exercises. I'll just call your name in alphabetical order, and please read the sentence we're on and tell me whether it's a thesis or not. Let's see. I think it's down here. Oh, I'm in the wrong one. Thesis lecture. There we go. Let's blow this up a bit. Can y'all all read that okay?
Yes.
If anybody can't, let me know. Okay, so this one goes out to Bruno. Unmute yourself, read sentence 1 and tell us whether it is a, oh, sorry, didn't give you the criteria. Oh man, I don't know. All right, so a thesis is not a title. So title is that thing at the top. It's usually centered. It's usually not a sentence even.
Or an indicative sentence. Give me the red ball. First 10 by program said, well, defect, that.
Where is that coming from? That sounds like me, right?
Right, number 2.
I think somebody may be playing my lecture. If you could turn it off. Oh my God. That's the first time that's happened. Thank you. All right. So a thesis, sorry. Not a title, not an announcement of the subject. My subject is the incompetence of Professor X, who plays his own lectures over himself. That's an announcement. You're saying, I'm going to talk about this. Instead, you should say, Bruce Magee is an incompetent teacher. And that would be an opinion that you're trying to prove. But it's also in the proper form. So the first parents, title, not a thesis. So that one needs to be reworded to be a sentence that states an opinion. This one needs to be reworded so that it still states an opinion, but it's in the simple declarative sentence form. And it's not just announcing what you're talking about. It's also not a statement of fact. So it's something you need to prove. Okay, let's skip those for now, the good thesis statements. All right, now with these criteria in mind, Mr. Bruno, please read sentence number 1 and tell us whether it is a thesis or not.
You want me to read it out loud?
Oh yes, the louder the better.
I want to tell you about the many defects in the administration's proposals for restructuring the Social Security program. And that is a bad thesis statement because it's just a declaration of what he's about to say.
Right, what we call an announcement of the topic. I want to tell you about. That's always going to be, set you up to be poorly worded. So the content is fine, but you need to reword it. The administration's proposals for restructuring Social Security have many defects. So there's your opinion, but it's now been reworded. All right, let's see who's number 2. Caraway.
Al Capone is Al Capone, the Chicago gang leader, was nicknamed Scarface. I don't think that is a good thesis statement.
Right. It's just not an announcement. It's a statement of fact. It's something everybody already knows, right?
Yes.
So something that would work a little better would be Al Capone, the Chicago gang leader, got his nickname Scarface in an interesting way. So there you go. So then you have a story to tell, right? And then it'll be up to them to decide if this is an interesting story or not. All right, number 3 is, who just did it? Caraway? Daniel.
justice delayed is justice denied. That's a thesis.
Yes, it is. It's an opinion, right? And it's a little confusing because it's very rhetorical. But what it means is if your case takes too long, whichever way it's decided in the end, it really won't be justice. All right, so number one, content was okay, form was wrong. Number two, the form is okay, the content is wrong. Number three, you've got both the form and the content. All right. Duran, read number 4 for us.
My thesis asks whether affirmative action programs are just a new form of racism. And I would say it's not a thesis.
Right. It's an announcement because my thesis asks. And also, it's, well, if you reworded it, it would be a thesis question, not a thesis, because we don't have the answer. So affirmative action programs are just a new form of racism, or you could say affirmative actions programs are not just a new form of racism. So that thing has 2 problems with it. Number 5, Edwards is absent, Farthing is absent. Gregory.
It's not only poor people who get government handouts. And that's not a thesis statement because it's a statement of fact.
Well, I mean, you would be surprised how many people don't think they're getting government handouts. I tell them all the time, I'll come over and help you shut off your water if you want me to. So this one is actually counters like a large misconception that people have. There is one problem with it centering around here. What is that?
Contraction.
Right. Contraction used in formal writing is a no-no. Also, beginning a sentence with it when it's not clear. Crap. Sorry about that. That's computer language, folks.
Yeah, you want to be specific.
Right. And so we need to how far are we down? Here we go. Oh, well, the it, which I cannot mark. Oh, there it went. Okay. So starting a sentence with it or that or this without the antecedent, that's what is it? And in a construction like this, it is just a way of getting the sentence going. So we want to reword it to poor people are not the only ones who get government handouts. Okay, who went last because I bopped my list?
Gregory.
Gregory. Okay, Hamilton's out. So Heinemann, if you will do number 6.
How to grow prize-winning roses. I believe that is a thesis statement, correct?
First, is it a sentence?
Yes, it is a sentence.
Where is the verb?
How to?
Well, to grow is an infinitive, which can't govern a whole sentence. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You know, I mean, we do have occasions where to be or not to be, but that's not, I don't know. We wouldn't consider that a sentence either. And also look at all the capital letters, H, G, P, W, R. Where do we usually see that?
For nouns.
Titles.
Titles, yes, it is a title. So it would have to be totally, made into a sentence. You can grow prize-winning roses by following these easy steps, something like that. Or as the kids like to say on the interwebs today, you won't believe how easy it is to grow prize-winning roses. 5 bullet points and 25 advertisements, between them. So anyway, title. This is a title. So it's not a complete sentence and it's got the caps. Does that make sense now?
Yes, I gotcha.
Great. Hickman, number 7.
This paper will examine recent proposals to reinstate the death penalty, and I would say that's not a thesis because it's announcing what the paper will be about.
Right. It's an announcement of the subject. So lobbying is underway to reinstate the death penalty, something like that. Whatever it is that they're doing to try to, and by the way, it was reinstated like decades ago. One of these days I'm going to update this. All right, Hyde is not here. Jones.
My husband is a terrible cook, and I do not think that is a thesis statement.
Is it a simple declarative sentence?
Yes,
Is it an opinion about somebody?
it is.
Yeah, so that would be a thesis. The dog might like the cooking just fine. Now, with that in mind, is Massey here for number 9?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, just read it and say if it's a thesis or not.
All right, my husband cooks.
Yeah, keep.
For our family, and that is a thesis.
Okay, the first one is.
I mean, not a thesis, not a thesis.
Right, why not?
Because it's a statement.
Yes, statement of fact. So 8 is, these are obviously related, right? But number 8 is an opinion. 9 is just a fact. There's nothing to prove. And number 10, McClinton.
All right. Number 10. Christmas shopping shows that the law of the jungle is still with us. I'm going to say that that is a thesis.
Yeah, it's an opinion, right? And this is perfect for winter quarter when you're coming up on Christmas when we start, right? And you can put in a few incidents like the woman who was trying to get a CD player back when those were popular and expensive. She got knocked out in the scrum, but the story had a happy ending because when she came to, she was still holding her CD player. There was another ending that was much sadder. This security guard was going to open the doors of Walmart at 5 a.m. to let in the anxious shoppers, and he literally got trampled to death. I mean, imagine getting trampled to death at minimum wage. You'd at least want to make a little more money for that kind of, combat pay, hazard pay. All right, now let's look at the second set. Different set of criteria because a thesis is like a pencil, and pencils come to us, they're usually dull and we have to sharpen them up. And normally with one of your thesis statements, they start out dull and we have to sharpen them up. So let's go over this. A good thesis is restricted. It's only talking about, it talks about the subject, even if it's a broad subject, in a narrow way. The world is in a terrible mess. Oh my goodness, you're going to be here forever. So we need to focus in on one way it's terrible, like trade barriers that contribute to international tensions. Now, a good thesis is unified. It's not all over the place. So we've got detective stories are not a high form of literature, but people have always been fascinated by them. Many fine writers have experimented with them. So that's basically 3 sentences that they've clumped together in one. It's not a simple declarative sentence. Detective stories appeal to the basic human desire for thrills. There you go. And this one also focuses on being narrowly tailored. So 2 of the 3 are saying it's narrow, it's restricted, and it's specific. Hemingway, and this one has to do with English class, so we'll do Hemingway. Hemingway's stories are very good. Oh my gosh. There are a lot of them, and you're talking about everything that's good, so that would be too much. My cat doesn't like it either. Now, Hemingway's war stories help create a new prose style. That one is good.
Wait, so is that your cat in the background?
Yes. When that's Diddles. He wants to be heard. Okay, how far did we get? Who was our last reader?
I believe that we started talking about Christmas.
Yeah, what's your last name?
McClinton.
McClinton. All right, I got you. So Moore and Murphy are out. O'Brien, read the sentence and say if it is good or not good.
The history of the United States is dominated by lust for money. I say that's a good thesis statement.
All right. So, how long is the history of the United States? Let's see, 76, 20.
About 300.
230, right?
Yeah, I would say about that.
76, 86, 96. No, 40, 240. This is English, so we aren't expected to do math. How long is your paper, Mr. O'Brien? So,
How long is my paper?
Yeah, about 500 words, right? So how many years a word?
It's two words per year.
Right. So are you going to be able to get through that? Is that thesis narrow enough?
No, I guess not.
Right. So maybe the, I don't know, the 2008 economic collapse was dominated by lust for money or something like that. How can I get to that? Here we go. There's the chat. Oh, somebody got here. Who got here?
Murphy.
Murphy. Okay, great. Anybody else come in? All right.
I think so.
All right. Who read the last one? I'm sorry, I had to pick my pen up. So
O'Brien.
O'Brien. All right. Well, Murphy, you can go with number 2.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, you sound good.
Oh, thank you. Common sense is sometimes the enemy of genius. I would say that is a good thesis.
Yes, because you've got two things, right? Common sense and genius, and you're talking about the difference. So it's a comparison and contrast. And also, there is a great weasel word in that one that you can use in your own theses. And what is that?
Sometimes the best word someone could ever not use.
Sometimes. So that so for these 2 examples, or take example Fulton's Folly. Do y'all still study Fulton's Folly?
No.
He had the idea that he could put a steam engine onto a boat, and everybody sat around. It was the most laughter any boat builder had since Noah, right? And then he changed the world by, self-propelled boats, which we'd never had before. It was, you could use a sail, you could row, you could, if it was a canal, you could have a mule on the side pulling it, you could pole it. But now you could just, supply your own power. Anyway, number 3. We did O'Brien already. Pepper.
British and American poets through the centuries have vastly overrated the glories of romantic love. I would say yes, it is.
All right. How many continents do we have in this thesis statement?
Those are countries, I believe.
Well, but how many continents are they on? We're starting big.
2.
2 continents. How many countries? At least two. It depends on how you count Britain, right? It has a bunch.
Yeah, Great Britain is 4 countries.
Right. So how long a period of time?
Centuries.
You're going to have to start with, I don't know, Gawain and the Green Knight, and go to today. So how many poets are you going to be looking at in this paper?
Thousands.
Thousands. So here's a great example of sharpening your pencil. So what's wrong with it before we move on?
Too much information for a small paper.
Right. It's too broad. It's neither restricted nor specific. Well, I don't know what happened there. Wait, maybe we can match. Oh, there we go. All right, so we have to start narrowing. How about we pick one of these countries? So we narrow it down to British and leave everything else the same. Is that narrow enough?
Not yet.
No. So we need to pick out what? One poet? Shakespeare, I've heard that name. So Shakespeare vastly overrated the glories of romantic love. Now, is it narrow enough now?
Could be one poet or just a smaller amount of time.
Well,
smaller period of time,
like,
right?
Yeah, like in instead of all his love poet, all of his love plays. What's one love play? Shakespeare wrote plays about love. What's one of them?
Romeo and Juliet.
Of course. So, oops. Oh, did the cat show up? Good. Romeo and Juliet. In Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare vastly overrated the glories of romantic love. So that might be doable. On the other hand, you might look it up and you're not writing a research paper, you're writing a 2-page poetry analysis. That's still pretty big, right? So did you write any stuff that's shorter than a play? What are those short things he wrote at the back of the book when you have your Shakespeare? He's got play, 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 play. And then at the back, you've got this other stuff. Anybody get that far? They're called sonnets. How long is a sonnet?
14 verses.
14 lines. Perfect. So sonnet 27, I don't know what it's about, but let's suppose it's about the glories of romantic love. Sonnet 27 vastly overrates the glories of romantic love. So do you see how we narrowed it? We started with something big and we kept squeezing it down until it was something we could handle in 2 pages. So this is a really good one to use as a way of narrowing our topic. Okay. Crap, I lost my place again. Who went last?
Pepper.
Pepper. Okay, Rivet, you're up. Rivet. Maybe Rivet is not here. Salter.
Which one?
I forgot. Oh, number 4. Hold on, I'll highlight it for you.
Thirst is harder to endure than hunger. I think that is a thesis statement.
Yeah, and a good one, because how many things are we dealing with?
2.
2. Thirst and hunger, and we're comparing them. So one is more difficult to deal with than the other. This is called a comparison and contrast thesis, which sets up a comparison and contrast paper. All right. Now, that was Salter. Shanklin, number 5.
Exercise is a worthwhile activity, and I don't think it's a thesis statement.
Why not?
I feel like it's opinionated.
Well, an opinion is a thesis. If there's something wrong, I mean, it's supposed to be opinion.
Okay.
So it's your opinion that an exercise is worthwhile, but there is something wrong with it. How many kinds of exercise are there?
A lot.
A lot. How many ways can something be worthwhile?
A lot.
A lot. So not a good one, but as we move to the next one, keep these both in mind. We're coming back to it. So Smith, number 6.
Jogging can add years to one's life, and I don't think it's a good one.
That one actually is. Why? I mean, what's the difference between exercise as a worthwhile activity and jogging can add years to one's life?
Much more specific.
Right. What is jogging? It's a specific form of exercise. What is longevity? It's a specific way of being worthwhile. You could also say, sports can help you develop good teamwork skills, right? That would be, or football. Football helps you develop good team skills. So that could be another narrowing of number 5. Doing, I don't know, what's one of those where they go around and they jump on stuff and do a lot of pull-ups and run around the building? I see, I can't remember. What's one of the cool exercise programs today before?
Are you talking about CrossFit?
Yeah, CrossFit. CrossFit can make you much better looking because, the Bowflex. Yeah, do you remember the Bowflex? It had an attractive woman who I can't remember, but also, was it Chuck Norris? And, so if you use the Bowflex, you'll be able to kick ass like Chuck Norris, right? So there are all these different ways to narrow that into something usable. So if I gave it to the class, 101 class, and said, we're all going to start with this broad thesis, and then you're going to make a narrow thesis and write an essay. We'd all have different essays because there are 100 different ways you could go with that. All right, number 7, Strickland.
Teaching tricks to a dog is easier than most people think. I don't know. I feel like there's like something weird about it, like something off. So I'm going to say no.
Okay, this one, of all the ones on the page, this one can go either way. So if you've got a dog and the dog is piddling on the floor, you get a puppy. Puppy's piddling on the floor. You go to the Lincoln Parish Library and you go to a bookshelf where they've got all their dog training stuff. Will there be big books on that shelf? Strickland.
Wait, what?
Will there be big books in the library on teaching dogs, training dogs?
Yes.
Yes. And do you want to write a book?
I do not.
No. So it would be too big if you're approaching it that way. By the way, what you do with that book, you get the biggest book they have, you take it home, and the next time the dog piddles on the floor, you hit him with it. Train that dog. No, don't do that. That's just a bad dad joke. So let's say you've been sitting in psychology and you've learned a 3-step method for teaching animals tricks and other training, because any training you do is going to be similar. You have this 1, 2, 3. So could you do that in a couple of pages, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah. So you just pick
I wasn't sure if you were like actually asking or not.
Right. So you want to pick out anything you want to teach the animal. And I saw B.F. Skinner do that. He had a clicker and food. He would give the dog food and press the clicker, which gets that Pavlovian response. And then he wanted to teach the dog, there's the cat. He wanted to teach the dog how to turn off the light. And so at first, when the dog went over to kind of the side of the room as it wandered that was near the light, he would click it. And after a while, the dog was going, like hugging the light. Then when it got higher, he would click it. And finally, it hits the light by accident and he clicks. Gives him lots of good treats when the dog comes running back. So I think you could maybe handle that in a couple of pages. All right, Taylor, do number 8.
The way people shake hands can reveal something about their character. I think that is one.
Yes, and it is the perfect English 101 thesis. So just look at it and admire it a minute.
Well, I'm good at this.
So what is so perfect about it? I come in, I say, I need a 400-word paper. And you start writing and you do the firm handshake, the dead fish handshake. I come back the next day and I say, oh, I made a mistake. I need 700 words. So you just keep adding handshakes until you get to 700 words, and then you stop. So if it's 400 words, you do 2 handshakes and then you stop. If I up it to 7, you add another handshake and until you get to 700, and then you stop. So it's perfect in that way. You can cut it off anywhere. All right. Number 9, Travis.
Natural beauty must be preserved, but government agencies often make foolish decisions on this matter, and jobs must also be preserved. I don't think it's a good one.
No, it's all over the place. It is. It's the only one we have of this that's in
the last one.
Unified. It's not unified.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so we have one more. We're out, so we're going back to the top. Bruno, you get to double dip.
In Moby Dick, Melville does a very good job, and that's pretty broad.
That's
definitely.
That's really broad because Moby Dick is the great American novel. So you're not going to be able to, and even for young Goodman Brown, I would not encourage this. There's too much going on. So you have to focus more narrowly. All right, so does everybody feel like you got a little more handle on thesis statements?
Yes.
All right, so back to young Goodman Brown, and from him to John Bunyan. I mentioned and what we're discussing today is what is the meaning of faith in young Goodman Brown. So last time we left faith undefined, except to say that anytime you see faith, and the name faith, on the literal level, it can also be read allegorically by the character trait of faith on the allegorical level. So he's been married to Faith 3 months. Means he's been a full-blown Christian for 3 months on the allegorical level. But beyond that, faith has been up for debate. For decades, scholars agreed that by the end of young Goodman Brown, Brown had lost his faith because in the middle of it, he says, my faith is gone. But we get back to town the next day. Faith sees him. She skips down the street. God, how old is she? Louisiana just last year raised the youngest age you could be married to 16. before that, you could marry off your kid as young as you wanted to. And so Faith's pretty young. Flooding.
That is crazy.
Go ahead.
I said that's crazy.
Oh, I know, right? These child brides. I knew this old lady out at Vernon, which is a little town about 10 miles south of Ruston. Well, I won't give her name. But she was on her third husband, and she had outlived the other two. And so one day I asked her, so how old were you when you first got married? And she said, almost 13. She had run away with the guy in his 20s, which nowadays would get him in jail. But a year ago, as long as the parents signed off on it, it would be fine, because Louisiana. Anyway, so the issue then, this relatively young woman, girl, skipping to meet Goodman Brown on the literal level, well, that's saying he is back together in some way with his faith. But it's problematic. And that's what this scholar, I wish I could remember his name right offhand, but he noticed that Faith and young Goodman Brown are together at the end. So that means young Goodman Brown has not abandoned his faith. And this guy's thesis was faith represents Calvinism and a belief in total depravity. So in this case, faith would be what? The articles of the Christian faith. Oh my God, this thing's slow today. Here we go. Turning the corner at the meeting house, he spied the head of Faith with the pink ribbons, gazing anxiously forth and bursting into such joy at the sight of him that she skipped across the street and almost kissed her husband before the whole village. But Goodman Brown looked sternly and sadly in her face and passed on without a greeting. Often, when awakening at midnight, he shrank from the bosom of faith, and at the morning or eventide, when the family knelt down, he scowled and muttered to himself and gazed sternly at his wife and turned away. And when he lived long, he had lived long and was borne to his grave, a hoary corpse followed by Faith, an aged woman, and children and grandchildren, a goodly procession besides neighbors, not a few. They carved no hopeful verse upon his tombstone, for his dying hour was gloom. Okay, so Goodman Brown is still with Faith, right?
Yes.
And they have children and grandchildren. What does that tell us about their relationship?
That they were still involved?
Yes, that's a great way of putting it. They were involved. Why? Because obviously they were having the sex. So he's still in some kind of relationship with Faith on the literal level. That means he's in some kind of relationship with Faith on the symbolic level. And the problem here, that's why I have that. Where's the lecture? The problem here is that all of those scholars for all of those years arguing past each other didn't really, they were using different definitions of the word faith. So here is the Oxford English Dictionary. I want everybody to have at least one quotation from the OED on your research paper. So you can go to the library and it's got these. This is one copy of the Oxford English Dictionary. It's as big as a set of encyclopedias. But of course, we live in modern times So we can go to the Tech Library homepage and look it up online. Database is A to Z. This is the Tech web page for the library. Click on O for Oxford English Dictionary, not D for dictionary, although if you do a search, you'd come to it eventually. And you can log into it. Okay. So we look up, we go to the OED. We want to figure out what does faith mean in Young Goodman Brown. We go to the OED and we look up the word faith. Believe it or not, I wrote 2 articles involved with this. And so I have taken this step back when it was not as easy, although I think it was already online. So we want the full entry with everything. Crap. You have the different spellings of the word faith that have occurred. Here we get to Middle English, Scottish. Now etymology. This is important because etymology is the history of a word. And so he goes back to Anglo-Norman, Old French. We keep, there we get various definitions. We go to classical Latin, fides, which is the Latin word for trust, guarantee, promise, etc. And then he even moves behind that because faith is such an important word for Christianity. The writers move, the dictionary, lexicographers, that's what they call it, move back behind that to the Greek pytho and pistis, which are the Greek, the meaning that is in the New Testament for pytho, which is the verb, and pistis, which is the noun, come over into Latin and from there to us. To French and to us. So this is a word that, brings over several words from really important meanings from other languages, like fides, where we get the word confides, which means with faith, and disfides, which means something's wrong with faith. We should put that in our PowerPoint. As we'll get back to that in a little bit. Goodness gracious. The screen gets really busy after a while. All right, so let's start looking at meanings and try to figure out what does faith mean in Young Goodman Brown. The fulfillment of a trust or promise related senses. Now, Brown could have told the sable figure, I have kept faith with thee, when he got to the woods. He did not, because it doesn't fit the allegorical meaning exactly. Here's a fulfilling one's promise, loyalty, fidelity, trustworthiness, the duty to fulfill one's trust, allegiance to a superior, and then they start giving examples. That's what makes this so great. A pledge, a formal declaration, a solemn promise isn't to give one's faith. An inducement to belief or trust. Have faith, I guess he would be saying. Power to convince, credibility, credit, convincing authority. Here we go, finally, number 3, belief, trust, confidence. And it can mean belief in and acceptance of the doctrines of religion, which the first guy, that's what he meant. This is simply the doctrines, the catechism that teaches the doctrines of Calvinism, if you're a Calvinist. Oh, here we go, a system of belief. That's what that means. And the faith, as in the Christian faith, or whatever religion you're in. So belief, trust, confidence, that's getting closer to what we mean in young Goodman Brown by faith. But there's something that comes along in the early part of the story. Can I look up stuff here? Poor little Faith. That always rang a bell with me. I felt like something was going on there, but I didn't know what. In the meantime, when I hit 40 and was thoroughly graduated from all my schooling, I made a list of all the books that I had not read that were important. One of them was Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan. Oh. Let's see. So I started reading, is that right? Well, this is the illustration of the robbery that occurs, where Goodman Little Faith is waylaid by faint heart, mistrust, and guilt. And they steal his travel money, but not his, well, let's go into it. Where? Oh, here it is. There we go. Need to move that over a little bit. So I was reading and I came across Goodman Little Faith, who was beset by faint heart, mistrust, and guilt. They woke him up. They took, they took his money. Then they go into like mistrust rushed up to him. Put his hand in his pocket, pulled out a bag of silver. They struck him on the head, and they went away because they were afraid of Great Grace, who lives in the city of good confidence. And so then okay, what is Pilgrim's Progress? Sorry. Has anybody read this ever? I don't think it's assigned much anymore. So this guy named John Bunyan, and not to be confused with Paul, the big giant, John was a tinker, which means to fix stuff in jolly old England. Well, it wasn't very jolly because they were overrun with a bunch of Puritans. And you know how fun Puritans are. They outlawed Christmas. They killed the king. They stayed up night worrying somebody somewhere might be having a good time. And
like my drawing.
Right, whatever you're doing, stop it.
Huh?
I said,
yes.
Go ahead.
This class is very boring. Believe me.
Yeah, the heck out of me.
Thank you for that. You might want to put it on mute, though.
Yeah, you scared the heck out of me mid-class. I heard the slam when you hit this. I was like,
let's see, who have we got? Duran, put yourself on silent, please. Thank you. Oh, can I do that? I can do that. Yeah, great. Awesome, thank you. But I concur with everything you said. So Bunyan came along after the revolution was overthrown and they went back to having a king. It was a lot more fun to have a king than a protectorate. And this guy Bunyan becomes converted to Puritanism and Pilgrimism and learns to read and write a little bit and becomes a preacher. And because he's an illegal preacher, they throw him in jail in Bedford City for 12 years, I think. And with no, he can't preach. So he writes Pilgrim's Progress. And it becomes the second most high-selling book in the English language on an all-time level. The number one selling book in the English language is, of course, the King James Version of the Christian Bible. Well, this is number 2. And so when we had Good Man, Little Faith, and he's got Poor Little Faith, Little Faith, and then you've got young Goodman Brown and Poor Little Faith, I said, there's got to be a connection here. So I started studying, and indeed, Hawthorne loved this book. He studied it, he read it when he was a kid because it was the only thing besides the Bible that he could read on Sunday. His children put on skits from Pilgrim's Progress to entertain him and his wife because, hey, no radio, no TV, no record player. You got to do something. And he also had written another kind of parody of Pilgrim's Progress. So this, I became convinced, was where he got his idea about little faith. And so they go in to the details. They got his spending money. They got not his jewels, which he had hidden better, protect the jewels. And they did not find his ticket. So when he got to heaven, he had the jewels and the ticket to get in, but he just lived a miserable life. So in Bunyan, Little Faith is a Christian who has and see, Bunyan is writing as a preacher, and he's writing in order to save people. And so he will tell a little brief story at the top, the way preachers do, and then spend an hour explaining it. So the story is really short. But then there are page after page of him explaining every last detail, which is good for us if we're trying to understand Hawthorne, who is being intentionally vague. He's being vague on purpose. He's wanting us to be as confused as young Goodman Brown, because he's a great author, not a preacher. And so he's got a different purpose when he writes. So Little Faith here is a Christian who has had a miserable life because there's something wrong with his faith. And what's wrong with it? He's faint-hearted. Mistrust and guilt have attacked him. So, you know, that's the literal level. What does that mean for the Christian? That's a Christian whose faith has been undermined because that Christian is faint-hearted, that Christian is mistrustful, and that Christian feels guilt, lingering guilt. So what do we find about young Goodman Brown when he comes back home? A stern, a sad, a darkly meditative, a distrustful, if not a desperate man, did he become from the night of that fearful dream, if it was a dream. So distrust and mistrust are basically the same word, right?
Yes.
Can y'all see that? All right, so a Christian faith which is healthy is one which has confidence. This is with faith, fides. When you go with your faith and it's in good order, then you meet the crises that come to you without a problem. Now, what would it be if he really had, if they really meant my faith is gone and it was gone forever? She was not in the village when he came back. That would be infides, where we get what word? Infidel. So an infidel has no faith. And that would be somebody who wasn't bothered by this stuff anymore, right? Because he's gone on his way, he's parted ways with his religion, and, you know, I'm doing my own thing. That's not Goodman Brown. How do you scratch something out? Goodman Brown has disfides. Have you ever dislocated your shoulder?
Thankfully, no.
Anybody? Yes, some old football injury. So nobody in this class has had a dislocated shoulder. Wow. Well, it hurts like hell. Is your arm, well, my arm just disappeared. Oh, look at that. Oh, my arm disappeared. In real life, does your arm disappear off your body when you dislocate the shoulder?
No.
No, it's still there. So what's wrong? Why are you complaining?
Because it hurts, it's damaged.
Right, it hurts, it's damaged, it won't work right. What do you have to do? You have to relocate it. You have to get it back in its socket. So that's dis, as opposed to in. These are both Latin words we've brought over into English, more or less, meaning what they mean now. With means, con means with, dis means something's wrong with it, and in means it's gone. So Goodman Brown is like the first good man, little faith, in that the good man, little faith, he kept his Christianity. He was faithful to his Christianity, but it hurt him because something was gone from his faith. His confidence was gone because he was faint-hearted, mistrustful, and guilty. And these three things, in my thesis, in my article, I had a thesis too. And it was that young Goodman Brown is kind of a split of this character, good man, little faith, into poor little faith in the story and young Goodman Brown. So it's still an allegory, but he split this into two parts. Okay, so yeah. So that's called in literature. So, and also my thesis is he was riffing on Pilgrim's Progress when he wrote this. What's his source? Criticism. Where you find the source of something and then analyze it in relationship to the original source. Like, what has he changed really? The main thing he's changed is making it hard to know what's going on. Everything else is still there, right? Yeah, it's fine if you gotta go. I'll be recording this, and so I'll post it up online if you have to get out. So he's taken this source where everything was tacked down, nailed down, preacherized to the last, to the nth degree. We could go on and spend the rest of the day just talking about his sermonizing on the story of Good Man, Little Faith. We're not going to do that because I just kind of explained it to you in many fewer words. But, you know, one way of writing a paper about this is to compare young Goodman Brown to Good Man, Little Faith, or rather young Goodman Brown and his wife to Good Man, Little Faith. And I believe, you know, it's a reading that holds together. It's coherent. Now, Bunyan, let's go back to Bunyan. You know, Bunyan makes me think of Funyuns. And what browser was I in? Maybe this one? Here we go. Chrome, because Chrome's cool. It's what the cool kids use. Christian, yeah. All right, now this is very much the way that the original book looked. It looked like the Geneva Bible, which had the Bible text, and it had what we call marginalia because it's written in the margin. Marginalia, there we go. And sometimes it's just a little summary of what's going on. But sometimes they have Bible verses in here. 2 Timothy. Do we have? I didn't put the most important one. Where's Matthew? Well, I guess he just expected us to know it. It's so obvious. Who would need to even note it? Okay, so 3 of the 4 Gospels are very similar to each other: Matthew, Mark, and Luke. So John was kind of written on its own, but those 3 have a lot of word overlapping. The overall structure is the same. So most scholars believe that Mark was written first, and then Matthew and Luke each had copies of it, and they expanded it. Now, in Mark, Jesus will get grumpy with the disciples, and he will say, "Why do you have no faith? Why do you have no faith? You've got no faith," which would come out to be infides, right? Once you get to Latin, apistis. And Matthew doesn't really like that. Matthew and Luke both use a word. Oligopistis, which is from oligo. O-L-I-G-O. Where we get oligarch, it means a few, or a little in this case. And pistis means faith. And it is a translation of a Hebrew term. You don't find this anywhere else in Greek before this. And it creeps into Christian Greek after a while because it shows up in Luke once, and every other occurrence in the New Testament is in Matthew. So where Jesus will say, "Why don't you have any faith?" in Mark, Matthew will change that to, "Why do you have such little faith?" Because obviously they have some faith or they wouldn't be there. There are a lot of people without any faith and they left, or they opposed Jesus. Let me see if I can find this in, I always liked. Oh my goodness, that's slow. The internet, she was angry, my friend. Do they have it?
Dr. Magee, I think it's gonna be Matthew 14:22 and 33 when Jesus walks on water.
Oh yes, we're getting to
Peter,
that.
Oh, and Peter comes with him, and then when he starts sinking, Peter says, "Save me," and Jesus says, "You of little faith."
Right.
He said, "Why did you doubt, or why do you fear?"
You just stole my good point, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Okay.
But very good. Here we go. Oligopistos. I misspelled it. I put up the noun, and this is the adjective. So there we go. So the one on the right is the way it looks in the Greek Bible. The one on the left is how it looks in English. So yeah, most of the times it occurs, every other time but the one you mentioned. Oligopistoi is in the plural. So, oh, ye of little faith, why don't you trust that your Father in heaven will take care of you? That's in the Sermon on the Mount. That's to everybody. Every other time it's to the disciples. So there's this one time, and I believe it gets to the heart of what we're talking about here. And this is a source of a source, right? We've gone back 2 layers. But anyway, Jesus is up on the Mount of Transfiguration. He's got Peter, James, and John. And that means the other 9 disciples are there below the mountain. Father comes to them with a child who has epilepsy. And they try to heal the child, but they cannot. And so Jesus coming down off the mountain, this great moment, it's, kind of the high point of his life, and he's met with this failure. And he says, oligopistoi, where is your faith? And he says to the Father, dost thou believe I can heal your child? And he says, Lord, I believe, help thou my unbelief. So that's that two-mindedness, right? How many of us truly have 100% faith in anything without any doubt whatsoever? So diffidence, it's a word we don't use much anymore, but that's what it's talking about, this double-mindedness. Yes, I have faith, but also I have doubts. And then who was that was talking about Peter?
Was Duran.
Duran, good. So that's right where we were headed.
I looked it up, and there's actually like 4 or 5. There's like 3 in Matthew and 1 in Luke.
Yeah, it's in the New Testament. It's only in Matthew and Luke, and it's only in Luke 1. So it's one of Matthew's words. He likes this word. They both found it in what they call Q, which means source in German. But Luke only used it that once, where Matthew says, I like this word. I'm going to use it a lot. The only time it occurs in a singular, where we've been talking in the plural to a group of people or a group of disciples, Jesus is on the lake. No, the disciples are on the lake. It's night, it's storming. They don't have Jesus with him, and they look out, and here comes Jesus walking on the water. And Peter has this moment of great insight. Great grace, great faith. And Peter's kind of the example of this vacillation of faith, because sometimes he's strong, sometimes he's weak, sometimes he's both at the same time. He says, call me and I'll come to you. And Jesus says, come on. And Peter starts walking on the water. And then what happens? He looks around and he sees the sea and he sees the wind blowing, and he begins to be scared and he begins to doubt, and he falls into the water. Now, at this point, does he renounce Jesus and renounce his faith and say, I won't have nothing to do with you anymore?
No.
No, it's not infides, it's disfides. Something went wrong, and he looks up to Jesus and says, Lord, save me. And Jesus reaches down to him, pulls him up out of the water, and says, Oligopistas, why did you doubt? Why did you doubt? So, oh, you of little faith, why are you doubting? What's wrong with you? That, something went wrong with his faith. It could be fixed. But in Goodman Brown's case, it never was. And Peter's was. I mean, he had even worse than this. Oh, and I believe we had that in the story. Yeah, here we go. Peter boasted at the Last Supper that the others would deny him, but he would never deny him. So he was boasting about how great his faith was, which is the sin of presumption, and pride, which is what Brown was doing when he went to meet with Satan in his own wilderness, this devilish wilderness. Peter, up on a time, would go try what he could do But though some do say of him that he is the prince of the apostles, Catholics. English did not like Catholics at this time. They handled him so that they made him at last afraid of a sorry girl. That's faint heart, mistrust, and guilt. So the denial of Peter when his faith failed, and then the falling into the water, the other cases where the disciples came up short. This becomes the source for Bunyan, which then in turn becomes the source for young Goodman Brown. So when you see that phrase, little faith, it's a tip-off. It's not just the regular meaning of faith. It's this specialized word. What's one word in Greek, it takes two words in English. Poor oligopistos, poor little faith. And it's a technical term for a specific failure of faith that occurs when the disciples are unable to succeed because of their doubts. And so it is that Brown, going into the woods, begins to doubt his neighbors, which is, of course, exactly the same thing that happened in the Salem witch trials, where everybody is suddenly doubting their neighbors. Are they really Christian? Are they satanic worshipers? And they start doubting each other and killing each other. Okay, any questions about the reading for today? Let's talk a little bit about how we can work that into a here we go. Here it is. Oligopistos.
So do we read this before the next class?
You were supposed to read it for today.
Oh, okay. I see.
We're a day behind. So for next period, read Cable's Pas and Jaune. Now we will turn in the article review this week so I can get it graded and we won't fall behind. And we're almost caught up because we got some slack days coming along. So anyway, if you want to write about this, you can write about it as a standalone thing. Little faith in Matthew and Luke, little faith in Pilgrim's Progress, or you can compare the little faiths from the various stories to talk about what is the meaning of faith of poor little faith, especially in Hawthorne. How does that, help with the understanding of the story? So there's some different ways you can write about it. You just have to come up with a thesis statement. What am I trying to prove? And then you could either go back through Pilgrim's Progress, you could go directly back to the biblical stuff, or you could choose another way to write about it. You could, if you want, write about Pilgrim's Progress alone, if you want to. I think I may have had one paper in all the years I've taught this that somebody did on this and not on Goodman Brown. Most people want to stay as wide away from it as they can. There's my light. All right, so questions. Let's focus first on, since it's this week, the article analysis. Does anybody have any questions about that?
No.
Anybody else? Remember, it's very different from what we'll be doing the rest of the quarter, but you have a lecture. Go down past the intro, and the second part of the lecture is on this. There's a audio-only version. Okay, we've looked at the syllabus and talked about the overall requirements to the class. I'm separating this lecture because you'll probably need to come back to it over and over again. I think pretty much any of it. Oh, I think my microphone keeps stuff from being able to hear. We'll just skip. Or you can play the YouTube video now.
Can you help me remember to do that, like when I'm calling roll, because I'll forget. Sorry about that.
Run the video.
I mean, it's fine for you guys when you're here, but.
All right. So if you have any questions when you get to working on it, go back through that stuff. Read over them. The notes may tell you enough without you having to listen to me drone on for an hour. But if you're still confused, replay that again. You can play it as many times as you like. It's a great thing about YouTube. All right, any questions? If not,
Dr. Magee.
Yes.
So essentially, and I know I can go and read it, but essentially we are going to be summarizing what the author of the article that we're writing about is saying in their article, and then answering some questions about it.
First 2/3 is your summary of the article. So what is the topic thesis? What are some of the topic sentences? If you have time, you can mention what is the main, like, what are some of the main evidence they use. And then the last third, and I think I have an example. The last third, yes, Edgar Allan Poe. How could I forget? The last third is your analysis, where you answer the questions. So here we go, last third. Here, and there's a sample review for you. So you can see how this guy dealt with Edgar Allan Poe. Remember, it needs to be on 3 pages, standard font, not 16 font. So you have 3 things. One is your summary, 2, your analysis, which for us is just answering the questions, and 3 is the well done bibliography entry.
Did you say 3 pages? I thought it was 2.
2 and a little on 3. Are you watching? Can you see the screen?
Yes.
So at least that much of the 3rd page.
Okay.
Now, why do I say that? Because I don't want that much on the 2nd page, which is what students do if you tell them 2 pages. So 2 full pages and a little bit on the 3rd to make sure you get all the way through 2.
And when is that going to be due?
End of the week. We don't have to do it Wednesday. I'll just set it up to, in fact, let's set it up now, and you can turn it in Friday. That'll give me the weekend to grade it.
I would also appreciate if you post all the classes that you recorded on the Moodle Zoom thing, because it's a lot of stuff, a lot of information that you say, a lot of useful information.
Right. I don't post it in Moodle because that changes every quarter. So go to my syllabus and go to the lectures, and it'll be in there.
Oh, okay.
In fact, you can almost forget Moodle except for uploading shit.
I thought I would be able to see the screen recordings and all.
I don't know. Can you?
If you record it, yes. My math teacher does that.
So you could tell it to save these? Okay, walk me through it. Tech support. So how do I get this to?
Cloud recordings right there. Over.
Left or right?
Right. It's up there on the tab.
Ah, okay.
And I think you have to set something up to do it, but it's pretty. I have
export maybe.
Oh.
So
by the search button, maybe export. You export a video to it, maybe that kind of thing.
Where is that? Left or right?
Right of the search button.
Oh, search. And then what do I do?
Export.
Oh.
See if you can. Oh, hang on. I don't know what it did. Yeah, I'm sure you can call help desk.
That can't. Yeah, some help you guys are. Well, I want to record it on my computer. There's a choice when we record to record it on the cloud or record it on the computer. And this way I keep it forever. If I put it on Moodle, then it's gone next quarter and all my work is down the drain. So just follow the, I generally speaking hate Moodle. So click on the syllabus and then you're there. And it's all organized by period. So, crap, I hate this long syllabus. Okay, so go to that period and there's that period's lecture. And it's got all my previous notes. So that's the other thing. I can embed it and we don't lose stuff. So today's lecture will eventually Well, it'll be in both of these places, thesis and regular lecture. Good man, little faith. All right, any more questions?
Could you tell us again what we need to worry about for this week?
We were going to set that up. We are going to set up to turn in the audience, what do you call it? The article analysis. Turn it in. I want to do this while y'all are watching me so I don't forget. Okay, now you don't, some places in the instructions may say to upload your article, but that was back before I did it all on computer. So just make sure the link's there and I'll be able to go to it if I need to. So that'll save time. Oh, here we go. Always got to be able to turn shit in. I think that's it. All right, so we're going to save. And so these will be due, anytime Friday. Give you all a little extra time on that. And you should be able to upload it. There you go. Upload it right there. And then everything else we turn in except the group project will be on Moodle as well. Why do we get such ridiculous names for like Zoom and Moodle? And now I'm saying them a million times a day. All right, anything else?
Dr. Magee.
Yes.
So this article analysis can be on anybody, like an old-time author or like young Goodman Brown? Or
It is on your research paper topic. So whatever topic you come up that you want to write your research paper about, and there was, if you remember, a link somewhere. I think I was at it. Okay. It can be anything that in the book that we decided we weren't going to buy because I never use it. But I had a link to, table of contents. So here's their table of contents. This is what all the other English 102 students are using. My stuff's online. Oh my God, the internet is slow today. Like we've opened this before and it just opened up. It's only like, a few pages. Try to get somebody that is old enough and famous enough that they have articles written about them. And you'll know when you go into JSTOR and you look up, who's somebody I've never heard of? So Charlotte Bronte, we know her. William Faulkner, we know him. Toni Morrison, she's kind of recent, but she's really famous. So there's probably stuff on her. Margaret Atwood. Here's one, St. Lucy's Home for Girls Raised by Wolves by Karen Russell. Never heard of either of that. So probably when you get into JSTOR, there's not going to be a lot on it. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sure thing. Any more? And see, the great thing, this will be recorded so other people can hear it too.
So the article analysis would be found in the week 2?
At the end of this week, right. It's the end of this week.
Writing thesis exercise, the outline into a rough draft?
I don't take up any of that stuff. It's all due the day that it's assigned. Let's take another look at the syllabus. And we are a day behind
questions about the book.
What's that?
Is it the one that has a bunch of questions about the young Goodman Brown?
Okay, so for our first period, had we had it in the proper week, this would have been, crap, I'm in the wrong class.
Yeah.
Let's get in the right class. Sorry about that. All right, so we would have introduced the class during the introduction week, but we didn't have a class period. So we're pushed everything one day late. So for today, instead of doing this last week, we did this week. And so before class, you read the thing assigned and then you do whatever exercises so that you're ready for class. So next period, between now and then, read Pas and Jaune by George Washington Cable.
Okay.
And here are the questions to answer about Pas and Jaune, so you have a better idea of what's going on. And we'll go over that in class and develop our themes for it. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any more? Okay, well, I will see you guys on Wednesday.
See you Wednesday.
We took up most of the period. All right, bye, guys.
Thank you.
Shares. And thank you. I know this is a lot to deal with. Did anybody else come in that I need to check in before I go?
I did. Ella Williams.
Williams. All right. Gotcha, Williams. Anybody else? So you got Murphy and Williams. Did Hyde, Hamilton, Farthing, or Edwards make it?
I'm not sure.
Well, they're gone now. So, all right. See you guys later.
Thank you.
Bye.